The sports card hobby has changed so much in the past couple of years, so let's reflect back and highlight a few things that I've noticed that are different. What's going on, guys? Matt here, back again with another video. So 2020 was only 2 years ago, but it feels like with everything that has gone on in the world, it was even longer ago. I still remember in January 2020, I was starting to get back into the sports card hobby after watching a few sports card investor and Gary Vee videos. Then we were starting to hear this COVID-19 thing taking over and getting people sick. And later in the month, the late and all-time great Kobe Bryant passed away, causing his cards to multiply. Which does lead me to the first thing I've noticed that's changed in the sports card hobby, and that's the sudden reactivity when it comes to real-life sporting events. Now, what I mean by this is the price jump or adjustment in a player's card market after a key moment, such as a buzzer beater or a big performance. So today I've written down a few of my favorite examples to help you remember how crazy it once got, and we'll start out with my personal go, Michael Jordan, when he first released his documentary. Obviously, you'd expect MJ and Scottie Pippen to have their cards go up, but it wasn't just them having their cards go up, but nearly all of their teammates and even their key playoff opponents who featured in the documentary. If you track MJ's Fleer rookie PSA 10 card, it almost doubled in price from just over 50k upon the release to around 97,000 on the release of the final episodes. And surprisingly, this actually wasn't the peak of the MJ card market, as it rose up to a ridiculous 738,000 in January 2021, or reaching an 840k sale in July 2021. Now, this card has dropped tremendously to 215,000, which was done in May last month, but it just shows how crazy the market got in that period. Another two of my favorite examples where sports cards multiplied overnight came from great performances in irrelevant games. Now, how can we forget the huge layoff the NBA season had in 2020 when COVID first started affecting it? And I still remember thinking that the season potentially could be called off, because at that point, we really didn't know what COVID was. Now, when the NBA season finally resumed after months off, they started off with the scrimmage game just to get the players warmed up, which also had no impact on the standings, and it was between the Denver Nuggets and the Washington Wizards. This is where we saw Bol Mania start, when he received his first major minutes of action and he scored 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 blocks in an amazing performance. I actually still remember waking up and seeing the Bol prison base sales at $100, and I was just rushing over to list mine on eBay. And I also remember the proud Bol collectors and investors posting their collections up as if they just hit the jackpot. Unfortunately, he's now at the Orlando Magic, out injured indefinitely, which was a massive red flag in his draft process. And honestly, you could probably pick up that $100 prison base up for free if you really just ask someone nicely. Another one of my favorite overnight sensations that has done remarkably better than Bol is Talen Horton-Tucker from the Lakers. He was another who also had a great performance in an irrelevant game when he scored 33 points and 10 rebounds in the preseason game against the Clippers. It even caused his teammate LeBron to send out a tweet highly praising him, and again, his sports cards went nuts overnight. One example that I had from my own eBay store was selling a base Revolution card of his for around $25. Now, his card market has held up a little bit better than Bol because he's had more consistent play and is also on a big market team, but it's also nowhere near the heights it was after that game. A lot of my sales on eBay in that period were based off reactive purchases, but now I still have regular sales, but it's usually more from consistent long-term play or really just someone collecting the player. I think over the past couple of years, we could honestly write up at least 100 more examples of when this situation has happened. And I'm not saying this doesn't happen anymore, but I feel like people have become better at dealing with the FOMO aspect, and we see less price reactive changes. You could say that this is a consequence of the sports card market becoming smarter and less of the dumb money being thrown around. I know in America and Australia, a lot of the stimulus money being given out was used for card spending and other things. Remove that and you have less of the impulse purchasing and wild fluctuations we observed in 2020 and 2021. You even have some economists saying that we're heading for a recession, and unfortunately when that's the case, people have less money to spend on their hobbies overall, as they're just trying to survive. I think the stimulus money even encouraged people to venture out and create their own break groups. Now, I'm not sure about you guys, but I definitely don't get as many messages anymore about people asking me to join their break group. And I also feel like a lot of break groups that I was observing during COVID have gone. Again, it's a cause of rising prices with product and a reduction of disposable income. People in 2020 and 2021 starting break groups would have gone in on the premise that they were going to make a fair bit of money. But if you remove the money aspect, it's really all about how loyal your community is to you. And for some breakers, they didn't have that, and it's probably led to their demise. Let's move on to another thing that has undergone a massive change, and I'm sure a lot of you people are experiencing it right now, which is in regards to getting your sports cards graded by a company. It might be crazy to think, But at one point, with the way the card market was going, you could literally send almost any card that you wanted into grading, and provided it got a 9 or above, you were almost guaranteed a profit. I honestly think my first few submissions in 2020 with around 4 to 5 cards of heavily populated Prism-based cards of Zion and Jar, they really did much better than my recent ones, which have way more coming back because of the way the card market has gone down. A lot of people nowadays, including myself, are being hit with the grading charges. If you're not careful with what you send, an entire submission may even end up as a loss. I always use the prime example of Bubble Tyler Hero, whose Prism base was going for $80 Aussie each, and along with the $40 grading fee at the time for Express, which does lead to a total cost of $120. That same card is barely hitting $50 at the moment as a PSA 10, so you've already lost half of your investment on a player who has mostly trended up in his career leading up to this point. I think you could pretty much say the exact same with any player and their base cards, as the love for base has gone down massively in the past couple of years. I know people will try to pump them up as the go-to card to collect when going after a player, but they've become so massively populated and hated that it's not the case anymore. In going along with that, as the price of grading submissions has risen, people are being extremely picky with what they're sending in to grading. And like I said, I was a little bit reckless in 2020, and really I could send nearly any card that I wanted that I thought was in great condition for grading, as PSA economy grading was only $20. Nowadays, people send in short printed cards, and you rarely see the bulk base grading submissions that were extremely popular back then. The card market was really nuts back then, and you could really buy a bunch of cards overseas, and most of the time it went along with the rising tide lifting all boats metaphor, because it would usually go up. You've also got the rise of SGC and other grading companies, when in 2020 a lot of content creators would say PSA or BGS only. Now SGC has built its impressive reputation thanks to their recent transparency and speed through their grading process. So upon reflection, those are the two biggest changes I've noticed in the sports card hobby since 2020, but let me know below the one biggest change you've noticed in the hobby. If you enjoyed the content, make sure you do smash the like button and hit subscribe down below, and yeah, I'll see you guys all in future videos. Take care.